Am I still online?
Yes, Dr. David, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. All right. My name is David Aveline. I'm from Mount Royal University, and I'm going to talk about irreligion, not religion, but irreligion, who's basically people who are not religious, and anti-religion. So those are the two topics. Now, beginning with this question, does God exist? Okay, now that's an interesting question. Um, in terms of empirical evidence, which means that which we can see, we can sense with our five senses, that would be sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing, we have no empirical evidence of God. Okay. And I think very few people would disagree with that. So arguments for the existence of God come not from empirical evidence, but from other things, feelings, testimonials, personal experience, anecdotal evidence, and most of all, faith. Faith basically says, I do not have any empirical evidence of the existence of God, but I still believe because my faith tells me that I believe this. Now, there's more than one way to not be religious. And here I've listed a few of the ways, and I'm going to go over them one by one as soon as I give some definitions here. First one is something called hard atheism. And that would be somebody who says that God does not exist and that's it. God absolutely does not exist. Now, if you look at that, that is a statement of absolutism. It's an absolute statement. You really can't know whether God exists or cannot or doesn't exist because you have no evidence one way or the other. But still, they assert an absolute that God doesn't exist. The soft atheism is a little different. It basically says, I don't see any evidence that God exists. Therefore, I'm going to reject the claim. There is a difference. One is absolute. One is just basically a rejection of the claim. Then we have agnosticism. It's kind of similar. The existence of God is unknowable. You know, apatheism, and that's an interesting concept, and I think some people might relate to it. That religion never enters one's thoughts at all. Okay, you weren't raised religiously. You never been to a church or a synagogue or a mosque. You don't really have any friends that are religious, so it's just it's not part of your life and completely. You're certainly aware that other people are religious, but it doesn't enter your life. Then there's a lot of interesting people, the culturally religious people, who may be absolute atheists. They reject the notion of God, but they still practice particular religions. That might be, for example, a Jewish person who's culturally Jewish and celebrates Yom Kippur and Passover, goes to bar mitzvahs and things like that, but does not actually believe in God. Post-theism, um, people who say that the division between theism and atheism is obsolete. It belongs to a past stage of evolution. We've moved on now. Spiritual but not religious, various definitions. I'm going to talk about that later. And then finally, the non-theistic religions, the religions in the world that really have no supreme being, and that would be Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, etc. Okay. Now, beginning with atheism and agnosticism. Um, whether God exists, it is actually a scientific question. If you formulate it, is there a supreme being in the universe that created the universe and guides all the principles of the earth and human beings and that sort of thing? That's a scientific question. And if you go out and try and prove that, it will either be supported or not supported. Now, because there's no empirical evidence for the existence of God, it's not supported. It's not supported scientifically. Now, the thing is, in any logical argument or any claim that happens to be made, the burden of proof is on the person making the claim, not the one disbelieving it. For example, if somebody says God exists, and my answer to that would be, well, I don't see any evidence of that. The person can't turn around and say, well, prove that he doesn't exist. That's shifting the burden of proof. If you're making a claim, if you say anything, I have $10 in my pocket or whatever, the burden of proof is on you to claim to prove it, not for me to disprove it. All right. I could just simply say I don't believe you, and then the burden would be on you in believing it. Now, in terms of making claims, if you told me you had $10 in your pocket, I just basically believe you. If you told me you had $50,000 in your pocket right now, I would want to see it before I believe you. So, in this sense, extraordinary claims must have extraordinary evidence. So if you're making ordinary claims, I took the bus to school today or whatever, then people will tend to believe you. But if you're basically saying, I saw a unicorn in my backyard last night, people will not believe you until you actually produce the evidence, excuse me, not elephants. So extraordinary claims must have extraordinary evidence. Now, atheism is not a religion. A lot of people say that atheism is a religion, and I don't believe in the atheist religion and that sort of thing. It's not a religion. The one of the great metaphors that people have used is that atheism is a religion, like off is on a television. All right. It doesn't make any claims or anything else. It's simply the rejection that God exists. Now, the interesting thing that everyone is an atheist to the 100,000 gods or so that have ever been named throughout history. Thor, Zeus, Poseidon, Woden, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're all atheists with the terms of these gods, but atheists simply say that they simply go one god further. I don't believe in one more god than you, kind of thing. Agnosticism is basically it's similar, but it takes this fence-sitting stance, right? The existence of God is unknowable. There's no evidence to say that God exists. There's no evidence to claim that God does not exist, right? So basically, that's agnosticism. I do not know. We cannot know. So here's the famous definition. Thomas Henry Huxley simply means that a man shall not say, and a woman for that matter, that he knows or believes that which he has no scientific grounds for professing to know. Consequently, agnosticism puts aside not only the greater part of popular theology, but also the greater part of anti-theology. It says, okay, we absolutely do not know. All right, moving on. Now, this is interesting. Closet atheism. You've heard of closet gays and closet lesbians. Well, what about people that are secretive about their atheism? That absolutely becomes necessary in many, many parts of the world. Let's, for example, say that you lived in Saudi Arabia, which is a strict Muslim country where any criticism of Islam is considered blasphemy. Uh, so, if you didn't believe in God and you lived in Saudi Arabia, you're certainly not going to make that a public announcement of that because the consequences would be absolutely dire. But beyond that, let's say you live in the southern United States or the Bible Belt, you're in Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, etc. Small town, you were probably raised amongst people to whom religion is really one of the greatest parts of their lives, right? That they're always talking about the Lord and Jesus and their love of Jesus. They're going to church and that kind of thing. And their whole lives are based around their personal relationship with Jesus Christ as they may sort of see it. Now, if you happen to not believe in God and you declare that, then you would likely be ostracized in communities like that. You would lose your friends. You may lose your job. If you own a business, people would stop coming to your store. Your life would be severely affected. So a lot of people basically say, "Oh, yes, I believe in Jesus Christ," but they don't for fear of what might happen to them. And there are many parts of the United States where that would happen. Yeah. So there we go. Ignosticism, not agnosticism, but ignosticism. It's kind of a subtle word, but it's basically the claim that you cannot even argue as to whether God exists because the concept of God doesn't have any clear definition. I mean, there are actually 100 definitions or more of God. The one we know, the Judeo-Christian God. Is it a Caucasian male sitting on a cloud with a white beard and wearing Birkenstock sandals and this sort of thing, or is it more a spiritual presence? Or is it the essence of the universe, or is it I mean, there are broad definitions, there are narrow definitions. Does God really answer prayers, or or do they sort of fall, just go out into space and that's it? So, and also there have been many thousands of gods named throughout history in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in North America, amongst the indigenous people all sorts of gods existing. So agnosticism says we can't argue this because we don't know, what the heck we're talking about, kind of thing. So anyway, so that's basically it. Um, Now, here's the famous British philosopher Bertrand Russell, who makes a really interesting statement, right? He lived till 98 years old, which is, amazing. Good for him. But, remember what I said about the burden of proof, that if you are making a claim, the burden of proof is upon you to prove it, not for me to disprove it. All right. So the burden of proof is on the person making the claim. Now, he has this exercise in what is called reductio ad absurdum. And what that simply means in Latin is to reduce something to the absolute absurd to discredit it. So what he said was that there is a celestial teapot and that it is orbiting the Earth and that it guides human affairs. It controls all kinds of human affairs, love, destiny, all sort of thing. And it is orbiting the Earth, but you cannot see it because it's invisible. So that is the claim that he made. And of course, it's an absurd claim. A celestial teapot that's invisible that guides human affairs. But not only can we not prove this, but we can't disprove this either. We can't say absolutely certain that one does not exist. We can think it doesn't exist, but it it's the idea that if you shift the burden of proof to the one denying the claim, it becomes absurd. And if that were the case, then we could make any absurd claim whatsoever, and have it given legitimacy. So that was Bertrand Russell sort of exposing that way. Apatheism, again, people not just simply not raised in religious ways whatsoever. They're neither religious, they're not atheists, they just don't think about religion at all. I'm going to pause for 11 seconds, by the way, until I get a drink of water from the fridge, if you'll excuse me. 1 second now. Okay, I think that was about 11 seconds. I apologize for that. Okay, now the culturally religious. The majority of the world, or two-thirds of the world belongs to one of three religions. There are 2.2 billion Christians in the world. There are 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, and there are 1.1 billion Hindus in the world. If you do the math, that's roughly two-thirds of the world. Um, is this really the case, though? Because many people practice, the rituals of their religion, um, but they themselves are not religious at all. So the example I've given was Jewish people. They may celebrate all of the holidays. They may go to synagogue and that sort of thing, but they might be out and out atheists, not believing it. They would be culturally Jewish. There are also people who might be culturally Muslim. I am proud to be Muslim. This is my heritage. But no, I do not believe in God. I mean, this certainly might exist quite a bit. Um, amongst the Catholics, Catholics claim that there are 1.2 billion followers. 1.2 people in the world are Catholic, and this is what the official number of the Catholic Church, right? However, that is the number of people who have been baptized. So, you're, early in life, you are baptized, confirmed, etc. But once you're baptized, the Catholic Church will consider you Catholic right up till the time that you die. Um, Now, let's say somebody is born Catholic, they're baptized as a Catholic, but that person might grow up and then become a devout Muslim by the time he or she is 18 years old. And just practice Islam for 50 years. That person is still Catholic according to the Catholic Church. How do you become un-Catholic? Well, you have to apply to be excommunicated, and this is actually quite difficult. It takes several tries and all that sort of thing. But anyway, that's a completely other story. So when they're counting people who are Catholic, are they actually Catholic? That's one thing. That's quite questionable. Um, Now here's the global. There was a large global survey of several countries done in 2012. I think something like 56,000 people surveyed, which in terms of surveys go, that's a hell of a lot, right? Um, so here's some religions, And here's the percentage of people within those religions who consider themselves a religious person, not a religious person, or an atheist. So the Roman Catholic atheists are only 1%, and we have Hindus 3%. So it's kind of negligible here. Um, the Buddhists tend to be, far more likely to than anybody else to consider themselves a religious person, and Jewish people are least likely with only 38%. But it varies, tremendously, if you like. Now, spiritual but not religious, SBNR, as it is basically called. In the United States, and this probably is about, 10-year-old statistic, there's a population that identifies as spiritual, but not religious, but that's about a third of the United States. And among 18 to 29-year-olds, it goes up to about 72%. Now that's a tremendously high number. People who do not belong to any formal religion. Particularly when you consider the United States one of the most religious countries in the world. But the a lot of people see that organized religion is dogmatic, it's restrictive, it's pushy, and it's the antithesis of free thinking. Uh, a lot of people consider that if you go to, say, any church, it's sort of like people saying, well, you don't have to walk your own path of discovery, because we've already walked that for you, and here is all the answers, and I'm going to hand them to you on a silver platter so that you can just accept them and don't have to think about them. Now, the spiritual people say, no, 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 I don't want that. I want to walk my own path. I want to discover the universe for myself, the awesome wonder of the universe. So that's where you become spiritual, but not religious, with a hierarchy in heaven, with gods and archangels and, and rules and regulations, etc. So it's a lot way to search for your own answers. And of course, there are thousands of answers to the deeper questions all over the world. It doesn't make sense to have them handed to you by other people. It's something that we have to sort of find out for ourselves. That is being spiritual, but not religious. Okay. A lot of people also find, the rituals of religion, just sort of have no relevance to their lives. Here's just a smattering of religious rules. Not eating pork. This basically came from biblical times when eating pork was not sanitary. Now, if done properly, it can be as sanitary as beef. Putting ashes on one face, that would be Ash Wednesday, the Catholics. Praying 5 times a day. Not turning the lights on a Saturday because it happens to be the Sabbath. Wearing religious clothing, religious weddings, and all that sort of thing. So a lot of people find this meaningless. And they feel that the spirituality of religion seems to be lost. Anyway, secular humanism basically comes out of that form of spirituality. Not everybody who's spiritual but not religious is a secular humanist, and vice versa. But secular humanism, in the United States, it's synonymous with communism and fascism and that kind of thing. People have really villainized it. What it simply means is applying the best empathetic. Let me rephrase that another way. It simply means looking at society and trying to find the maximum good for the maximum amount of people, as opposed to just dictating the way things should be. A lot of this is based upon empathy, based upon the idea that we do not want to see suffering of other people because we don't like suffering in ourselves. So that basically says it. Instead of God, we look at society. Instead of faith, we look at tolerance. Instead of sin, we look at discrimination. Instead of Jesus, we look at the ideal citizen, the best person for society and the best way to act for the good of society, etc. So that is secular humanism. Now, onward, let's look at children. Here's some really cute children. Even the child here holding God hates fags. He comes from that horrible cult that was around a while. I think they've gone into obscurity now. But I doubt this child knows what he is holding or knows the significance of it. Um, but anyway, one of the things that we do with children who are 1, 2, 3 years old, um, we say that they are the religion of their parents. So we can look at, so we tend to look at a 2-year-old as a Muslim, a 2-year-old as a devout Christian, or a 2-year-old as a Hindu. And if we really sort of examine this is rather ridiculous. 2-year-old children are not religious. They're not religious, nor do they understand, the workings of the universe and the cosmos and the spiritual questions and the deeper meanings of life and metaphysics and that sort of thing, because they're 2, 3, 4 years old. Um, Richard Dawkins, a great biologist, suggests that we say, instead of a Muslim child, we say a child of Muslim parents, and that makes a hell of a lot more sense because children, of 2, 3 years old, we could not say that they're religious anymore. We can say that they have political leanings or philosophical leanings toward life. Why? They're 2 and they're 3 years old. So now that becomes significant when we think of counting the numbers of religious people. There are countries in the world that are called youthquakes, where almost a third to half of the population is under the age of 15 years old. And we count these people within the religions, the younger people. So, when you say there's 1.2 billion of this and 2.6 billions of those, it becomes very contentious in this way. Who are you counting? Now, the Universalist Unitarian Church, I just wanted to mention it here only because it seems to be one of the most generic religious organizations that existed. They would welcome you to come to their church, their services, if you are atheist, agnostic, Buddhist, Muslim, Hindu, anything else, because they simply encourage spiritual growth more than anything, and they're just wonderfully accepting. Here's some of the things that they do believe in. Believe in the worth and dignity of all human beings. Believe in justice, equality, and compassion. Belief in acceptance of others, belief in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, whatever conclusion that would be, belief in a right of consciousness and use of the democratic process, and belief in a world community with peace, liberty, and justice. I mean, this is their creed, and as you can see, it's just incredibly inclusive. rather than restrictive. Okay. Um, Global Index of Irreligion. So here's a bunch of countries. In China, people counting themselves as religious would only be 14%. People not religious, 30%. People who are atheists would be almost half. I mean, wow, that's amazing. Then we have Japan, South Korea. South Korea tends to be a bit more religious, but still. So it's quite a bit. Get to the European countries, you've got almost half who are religious, but again, more than half who would be not religious or atheist. And that's really something new in the world. Here are the most religious countries in the world. Ghana and Nigeria. 96 and 93% of people in that country would consider themselves religious, mostly Christian, which is a really interesting testament if you think of where that came from. Within Ghana and Nigeria, Christianity is not an indigenous religion. It's not a religion that, has been around there for thousands of years. It was brought over, of course, by the colonialists and forced upon the people. And then once the colonialists left, the machinery is in place, and many people are Christian because of that. Okay. Here's some changing countries. Basically, the declining religion. People consider themselves religious, excuse me, in Vietnam, 77% in 2008, and 4 years later, it's down to 68%. These are staggering numbers, especially if you look at Ireland, Switzerland, etc. So quite a few changes in the world going on. All right, now I'm winding up here. Hostility towards religion. Excuse me. It's one thing to not be religious. Um, it's quite another thing to think that religion is quite harmful to humanity. Now, if we do look uh, at the history of hostility toward unbelievers, whatever the religion will be, then we can see that throughout history, millions of people have been slaughtered, tortured, and executed because they did not believe what you believed. Case in point would be the Crusades between the 11th and 13th century, and a battle between European Christians and Muslims in what was called the Holy Land. In 13 countries, it's illegal to be an atheist. Others, you may be disenfranchised and stripped of your rights as a citizen, etc. As a matter of fact, I think in a recent survey, these surveys come out all the time, and where one question is, would you have as your president an African American, a Jewish person, a gay person, etc.? Well, the lowest of the low would be atheists. That absolutely, you know, um, that's that is the category that comes up most frequently of people you don't want to be president of the United States. Um, Here in the United States, here's a couple of articles that are on the books, for people going into politics. So for Texas, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust in this state, nor shall anyone be excluded from holding office on account of his religious sentiments, provided he acknowledge the existence of a supreme being. So that way, so being an atheist, or for that matter, being a Buddhist, would preclude you from running for office in the United States, right? Um, in North Carolina, the following persons shall be disqualified for office. First, any person who shall deny the being of Almighty God. So if you're an atheist or again a Buddhist, sorry, you cannot run for office. Hostility towards religion. Um, there have been, violent attempts in history, to quash religion, and stamp out religious people wherever they existed. I mean, mostly from or from genocidalists, that's a word. Um, Stalin being the most, notorious of them, who's said to have executed millions and millions of people. The Khmer Rouge in Cambodia executed 1.7 million people trying to stamp out religion. Certainly, Hitler, caused 6 million Jews to die in the gas chambers in World War II. So there's been some quite notorious, reasons, but excuse me, quite notorious efforts, if you like, to stamp out religion. Um, Simply being anti-religion, is not, is sort of never to that extreme. Um, Here are some of the main critiques of religion. Um, they fall into various categories. Critiques of religious dogma. Uh, Religion is a human invention. Harm to individuals, harm to societies, and then morality and human rights violations. Okay, so going those one by one, critiques of religious dogma. Now, the Bible, the Holy Bible is filled with absolute wonders. It's just amazing some of the things that one would read simply in the chapter of Genesis. And a lot of people tend to reject these things. Did Moses really part the Red Sea? Right? Um, did Adam, did God really take one of the ribs of Adam and form Eve out of it, and form women out of the ribs of a man? Did that happen? Were there talking snakes in the Garden of Eden? If Noah's Ark really did exist, where did the penguins and the polar bears and the kangaroos come from? They certainly weren't native to the Middle Eastern desert at the time, but somehow they were saved on Noah's Ark as well. A lot of these basically defy logic and are just impossible according to the laws of physics. So in that sense, people have rejected these sorts of stories. Some of them have rationalized them by saying, well, they're really metaphors for the teaching of higher principles and this sort of thing. But there are a lot of people who believe that, literally, that there was a talking snake in the Garden of Eden, even though snakes don't have any vocal cords, if you like. Anyway, number two, religion is a human invention. It's basically said that it was 100,000 years ago the world was a complete mystery to the people that existed at the time, and because of that, that they invented supernatural explanations for the things that would go on. And this is where you have the beginning of animistic religions, where gods and other spirits and entities are seen to control natural phenomena like the rain, the wind, the sun, the moon, and that sort of thing. Karl Marx saw religion as a tool that justified suffering, and therefore prevented poor people from trying to better their situation because suffering is good, kind of thing. Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris considered religion to be a form of mental illness, going to that extreme. Um, okay. Harm to individuals. Does religion harm people? Does it actually cause people harm? Well, yes, in various ways. There's inadequate medical care. Each year in the United States, you've got maybe 100 children that could have been saved, but the parents decided to pray instead of seeking medical help. I mean, that has always happened in the United States, and children are dying as a result, or have permanent disabilities. A lot of sexual guilt and a lot of suicide. People feeling terribly, terribly guilty over their sexual desires. Punishing themselves, doing horrible, harm to themselves because they happen to have had the urge for masturbation and this sort of thing. A lot of people committing suicide because of same-sex desires, because they're gay or lesbian, for example. And that has been, religion telling them that they're less than human. Uh, which suicide is, certainly makes suicide rates go up. I mean, that's not debatable. Honor killings has happened. Genital mutilation, basically, you have circumcision, which is religiously dictated. Bullying in the United States, there several years ago there was a great efforts to have anti-bullying laws in high school that you're combating bullying, but fundamentalist Christian leaders really fought against that because that would prevent Christian teenagers from telling gay teenagers that they're going to burn in hell for all of eternity. So a lot of anti-bullying laws because of that. You can bully if you have deeply held religious beliefs. So there's that. Uh, okay. Harm to society. Religious terrorism. I'll just wind up in the next 3 or 4 minutes here quickly. Certainly we know about that. 9/11 was a religious terrorism. So were the Oklahoma bombings, where 100 and something people, including children, were killed because of a Christian terrorist. So, it's not all one religion. It's a lot of religions. The absolute attack and suppression of science, which seems to be becoming more and more and more prominent, especially in the United States. The idea that science is just an opinion, evolution is just an opinion, and it should be on an equal plane with creationism, and absolute denial of anything, that we don't want experts. Even during the COVID pandemic, the denial of science. I mean, this becomes more and more and more prominent today. That's a major problem. Denial of climate change. Why do religious people deny climate change? Well, after the Great Flood, 40 days and 40 nights, Noah's Ark, and that sort of thing, there was a rainbow. And the rainbow was said to be God's promise that there will always be a harvest every year. And because of that, then climate change will never happen because there'll always be a rainbow. So this is the logic that is anti-climate change. Of course, it's just, it's religiously dictated. Morality. A lot of people might ask an atheist, well, if you're an atheist and you don't believe in God, where do you get your morals from? I mean, why don't you just do what you want? I mean, because you're not answerable to anybody. Why don't you just steal from people? Why don't you just murder people when you want? Take what you want, to hell with anybody else, because you don't believe in God. So the answer to that is, well, I don't do that because I want to live in a society where, people will respect my rights and if I respect theirs. So, um, personally, for me, I do not steal and murder, because I don't want people to steal from me and murder me. So the exchange of that is we both get to live in a peaceful society. And that's where morality comes from. It also comes from empathy. The idea that if I see somebody suffer, I understand what that suffering is like, and therefore I'm going to do what I can to prevent other people from suffering. Um, Now, Richard Dawkins will also say that if the only reason you're not stealing, and murdering and lying is because you have some rules that tell you that you shouldn't do that, then that in and of itself is immoral because you're not refraining from these things because you think they're wrong. You're refraining from these things because they're against the rules. So that's where morality comes in, and that's where the debate over morality comes in because of this. Uh, and that I'm going to leave here. I know all of my PowerPoints in school have this lighter end to it. So um, there's devil or angel, and I think we've all been in this situation where, should we do the bad thing or should we do the worst thing or excuse me, the good thing? Um, some of us sometimes we do the bad thing, but I hope most of the times we do the good thing. Uh, I'm going to stop sharing now. And I have no idea how to do that. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So if anybody